Hi, I'm Sam,
Hi, I'm Belize.
and we are Heartbreaker Films, and we are coming to you this week with Logline for a Walk to Remember. Landon Carter is an 18-year-old high school senior who is the typical bad boy, too cool for school, wrong side of the tracks kid in this small town outside of Virginia. He and a group of his friends go to a water tower with this brand new kid and basically peer pressure him to jump off. Landon was all supposed to jump off, and this what ensues after the fact is this kid gets injured, and Landon, by the grace of God, does not get arrested but has a bunch of consequences fall upon him by the principal. For some reason, this town sees something in Landon that he doesn't even see within himself, nor his family, nor his friends. But through this series of consequences, he has to work as a janitor after school, help out by tutoring underprivileged youth on the weekends, and help out with the school play. And in doing these things he would have never done prior, he gets to meet Jamie Sullivan, the pastor's daughter. Jamie Sullivan is the goody two shoes that we can all picture in our minds when thinking of the preacher's daughter. And somehow she sees something special deep within Landon. They fall in love over the course of a few months, and this love affair changes the course of Landon's life for the rest of his existence. I want to hear your thoughts.
The beginning did not work for me. And when I say the beginning, basically, the way the movie is written, in my opinion, it's almost like two movies at once. Because the first, what was 45 minutes, I thought it was already ending because of the way they had made it. I was like, it's already done. Like, this is the whole thing. This,
Where can you pinpoint?
like, a little bit before the cafeteria scene happened, but just like all the issues that they were having, where it's like the play just happened. After the play happened and they performed together and they had the kiss and it was beautiful, and I was like, oh, it's over. That's the whole thing. They're now together. Like, it's gonna end. And I wasn't keeping track of time, so in my mind, I was like, yeah, enough stuff has happened. This feels about right. Because at that point too I was like, Landon's not redeemable to me because what he did is so terrible, and all he had done at that point to fix it was done what the principal told him to, and then he finally went and apologized like I don't know how many weeks after the fact. I felt at first a little bit too uncomfortable with the amount of like church and God and stuff like that. I was like, this seems a little bit more preachy too. It wasn't too overly doing it to the point where I was like, this is too like religious or whatever. But I was just like, I don't get it. And then it kept going, and it got a lot better for me at that point because that's when we had the scenes. Like, the cafeteria scene is what sold it for me personally, because that's when I actually really liked him and how he acted there. And then he came and like touched her face, and I was like, oh my god, okay, this is really romantic. And then of course then there was all the other moments. So like they redeem him really well afterwards, and I really do understand why this is your favorite movie, because like anyone out there is watching and is actually like wanting to know, Sam's love languages are literally what that character does, in terms of like keeping track of this girl's in keeping track of Jamie's list and then making those different things happen one by one. Like he
Ron made that connection till this very podcast. Why I would do anything for Landon Carter.
yeah.
Can you believe?
Like he brings her to the state line thing. He looks her up in the yearbook and sees that she wants to do. And also, because of the yearbook quote, I always thought her number one on her list was to witness a miracle. So when she said that it was to get married at the church, I was like, oh, that came out of nowhere. But okay, cool.
So you thought she's looking in the yearbook, stay and go through every beat. Let me tell you,
Yeah.
please go through it, savor.
So he takes her there. I loved the little tattoo thing that was also, they did that really well, where it was like really sensual, but not where he didn't cross a line with it at all. Like, because I thought he was gonna, like, when he was leaning in, I thought he was gonna kiss it, but he just like blew on it, and I was like, you're smart. That's really good way to do it, where it's not like her feeling uncomfortable or anything like that. And the fact that he like took her to dinner and asked her dad's permission for, like, you know what I mean? Because I think it's one of those things where it's like you could expect, for example, if this was Greece, Danny would probably just like have Sandy sneak out. He's not gonna go and ask the parents permission because he's like, no way in hell are they gonna give me permission. So I'm not even gonna ask for it. Sandy, just climb out the window.
And if you think about it, I like that example you just used, where Landon Carter starts in this film is like an early 2000s version of Danny Zuko.
Yeah, when they were first showing stuff, I was like, ah, the classic like Grease concept of like, the cool
Boy,
villain.
good girl.
Yeah. I didn't like his friends for sure.
Yeah.
I didn't understand why the ex-girlfriend was even a part of it that much because she wasn't mean entirely. She was just there.
No, Belize, like she's mean. The cafeteria scene hits because it's mean. Could
But
you imagine a
that's
person?
other friends that did that. Did she do
No, she did it. She's the one that took the photo. Remember when they're in the hallway and they're in
that?
the
I
the only reason he took it out on the friends is because he would never yell at a woman like that. He would never, because I thought about it. I was like, why is he hitting his friend? You know what I mean? Like, why is he hitting this guy that we have no emotional attachment to, other than knowing he's like not good for him as a cohort? But then I thought about it, and I was like, oh my God, Landon Carter respects women. Like Landon Carter respects women, and so his beef is with like the nucleus of the friend group, of like the whole like evil of this friend group. And so he has to take it out from the top, which is like the top dog of the friend group. So they're all in charge of it, but who took the photo? Who was photoshopping it? Who toyed with Jamie and was like, oh, I just want you to know that, like, me and him.
I definitely confused the two girls because the other girl was the one passing it out and stuff like that, so I thought it was more her.
Oh, she's the best friend of the ex, so she's like, she's obviously gonna be on the ex's side. But the reason
They're
why I think
so straight because it's like they're barely in it, but then they do that mean stuff, and then the boys from the group are redeemed, but they're not really redeemed. They don't really go and do something about it, whereas the boys actually come to him and apologize and help him with this project and stuff like that.
the ex exists because Landon this whole time is like, oh my God, like that scene between him and the ex is like the big like red nose of like why she exists in this film. It's like Jamie saw something in Landon that Landon didn't see within himself. And he's like so shell shocked about it. And he's like, I don't understand why she would want to be with me. And the love of Jamie makes him become a better man. But that girl loved him for all the same things that Jamie sees in him. And she says in that beat, she goes, I do. When he says, like, I don't know why she would pick me, she says, I do. I think she kisses him on the cheek and leaves. But
Yeah.
the difference is that the love of this girl was keeping him where he was. Like, she was like a symbol of like who he was and who he never wanted to be again. And that's why he broke up with her at the very beginning of the film. But Belize, we're in the 2/3 mark. You ought to keep talking. First of all, what are your thoughts on what I just said about the ex?
Yeah, I think that definitely helps for sure. I guess I've just seen more prominent mean girl characters before, and to me it was like I just never cared about them or what they were doing. The only time I cared was in the cafeteria, and then right away my attention was directed to him because I think those friends are terrible, and I don't think they're redeemed in any way whatsoever. I don't think they're redeemed because it happens after they find out the news. Which I didn't see coming at all. I really also loved when he told her that he loves her, and she was like, I told you not to fall in love with me. And I was like, oof, like.
What did you think about earlier on in the film when he's like, will you help me? And she goes, on one condition. You have to promise you won't fall in love with me.
I thought that was really gutsy for her character. I don't know how much I would buy that her character would say that.
Mm-hmm.
But I liked it. I didn't dislike the line, you know what I mean? Because it's like he didn't laugh at her or anything like that, and I like that she has some level of self confidence enough to say that.
That's the line that always bumps me in the film, to be honest. It's always the line that bumps me. It's not because I don't think she would say it, because I do think she's a little bit of spicy. That's why she's so attracted to him, like in front of the door at their house when she's like secret friends. Oh, okay, maybe you can read my mind. Like she is a little spicy, like little firecracker, you know what I mean? Like she does, like she knows who she is. She loves herself. She's like very in love with herself in the sense of like she feels super like doesn't care what anyone thinks about her. But that's the line that always bumps me because it's like a little cheesy. But it's also 2002, and I think the redeeming line that comes after of what you just said of like that I told you not to fall in love with me, and then when we find out what happens, I kind of understand more. Basically, she's saying like, don't get attached to me. So when she says what happened, how did you react?
Yeah, that was rough. I was not expecting that at all. And then my first thought was, oh, but she'll get better. Like, it's gonna be fine.
I think it's interesting that they choose leukemia because leukemia is like notoriously the most aggressive of all like childhood cancers. But I think it's really cool. Like, it's so funny. I was watching this movie yesterday with my mom, and she like pops in, right? Tell me how my mother doesn't remember anything. Tell me how this woman doesn't remember anything, okay? Can't remember the name of my best friend for 15 years, whatever. She walks through the living room drunk, sees one frame of the movie. It's them like passing each other in the hallway with like the, it's something about you. And she goes, I know this movie. And she goes, and I love the fact that his father, he paid for the hospital. The fact that he runs immediately, this man full of pride, this man full of loathing for one person on planet Earth, and it's his father who left him and his mother. He runs to his house door and says, my girlfriend has cancer and you have to see her right now. Like, right now. I love so deeply that Landon's whole mentality after he finds out is like, okay, I'm gonna sulk for a second because like I'm in love with this girl and I really pictured forever with her, and now I don't have forever, but you know what I have right now? That's his whole energy in the movie, is like, I have right now. That's why when you said like okay, now the movie's kicking, no one's redeemed in this film. No one's redeemed except for Landon. And that's what makes it so sad, is that like everyone in the movie is like, oh, you're such an idiot, like why are you like changing because of her? And then they see the way he's changing and they see how much he cares about her. Like, he's never cared about anything before in his life, and then the town finds out about her getting sick, and then it's like, it's the weirdest thing because it's like everyone's not rallying behind her. Everyone's already loved her. You know what I mean? Except for his friends. Like, she has tons of friends. You know what I mean? She's like perfect. But then they rally behind him because they're like, oh my gosh, you're gonna feel it. Like, you're gonna feel this. At the beginning of the movie, I was rewatching it because I haven't seen it since I was 13, so like 11 years ago. And like, I haven't seen it in a while because it made me sad every time I see it. And like when I was watching it last night, I was like, oh my goodness, this movie's like really weird because I see all the reasons why this girl is like I see all the reasons why this dude is falling in love with this girl because she's literally perfect. She's like an angel. She's a literal angel. She's Mandy Moore. Let's put it to perspective right now. Mandy Moore prior to this film, like just biz talk, Mandy Moore prior to this film only played the bitch girl or like the hot girl. You know what I mean? She was the stupid Cupid, you're a real mean guy. She was the mean girl in Princess Diaries. You know what I mean? She was the ex, and then she's in A Walk to Remember, and she's like, I just loved her character development. Okay, she's like soft like honey, the voice of an angel. Her father's the pastor. She does all these things for fun. She reads for fun. She doesn't care what anyone thinks about her. She doesn't care what anyone thinks about her except for herself. That's it. And Landon is the complete total opposite. Landon cares so deeply what everyone else thinks about him to the point where he doesn't think about his future, about himself, about anything that actually matters. He has such a disregard for life, he's careless. He's very much right here, right now. And when she tells him like, what, you just love high school so much because you know you're going to peak and you're never going to be this great again. So you have this character whose arc is basically like, I care so deeply what everyone else thinks about me that I'm really willing to like almost kill someone by accident because of it, to the point where he's like, no, this girl who's so perfect, who's so effervescent, who's so angelic, sees something special. She literally says that. She's like, I saw something special in you and I think I was wrong. It's not that he cares about what Janie thinks about him. It's that he starts to really think, I want to care about what I think about me. he says it at the end. He's like, loving Jamie saved my life.
But I will say, I love Jamie. She's got like no flaws.
Oh yeah, we can talk about this, dude. Just because I cried talking about this movie doesn't mean we can't rip it apart. um, she has no flaws.
I would love for, it's one of those things where I guess you're almost forced to be relating to Landon, because I'm like, how can anyone relate to the perfect angel?
I always think, like, after I saw this movie, I was making a comment to my mom. I was like, think about it. At the end of the movie, like, the big secret on her list is that, like, the number one thing on her list that she doesn't tell him about until the very end is that she wants to get married at the church that her mother got married at in the town where her mother grew up. And so at the end of the film, after everything Landon is done, he builds her the microscope so she can see the comet. Like, he spends day and night building this thing. Like, he won't rest. He won't leave her side at the hospital, like everything. And then he marries her in front of the entire town with her dad as the pastor. And she looks so beautiful. He looks so beautiful. And then the movie, like, drifts. I'll never forget the voiceover at the end. That's the one thing that, like, that's the reason I couldn't watch for like 10 years. The voiceover at the end is like, me and Jamie had a beautiful summer together, filled with more love than anyone could feel in a lifetime. Right? And then he goes off to med school, blah, blah, blah. But then I make the joke in my brain. I'm like, bruh, he was 18 and got married. Here's the rest of his life ahead of him. So, like, could you imagine, like, being the girl who gets married to him next? You're constantly living in the shadow of Jamie Sullivan. Like, this, like, girl who's not here will always be better than you, because think about it. Like, I agree, she has no flaws, but think about this. Think about why she has no flaws. She's 18. She's the pastor's daughter. They're in a small town. It's the 90s. She probably had leukemia for at least a year or two, so 16. You know, you're already under lock and key. Like, what were you doing at 16? You know what I mean? I'm saying that in the sense of, like, she didn't really have a lot of time to develop flaws, you know? And then she was raised in such a pure experience, and she lost her mom. She was raised having to, like, basically be the maternal figure with her dad, you know? That it's like, it's an unreasonable shadow to cast.
It's also very possible, though, that the same someone experiencing those same experiences could also walk around living like there's no tomorrow, because there basically isn't. And so treating people and acting and dressing that way. So I don't think that, like, I think her experiences have shaped her, yes, but I think it's also because that's just what her character is, and that's how she was raised to be, and she stays perfect despite that news. And
why do you
like, that's why when I found that out, I was like, okay, now I get why you're walking around with the Holy Bible in your hand and stuff like that a lot more.
Yeah, you're gonna meet your maker, and
you know
you're gonna meet
whereas
your maker.
Yeah, like, whereas if you see, I mean, 10 Things I Hate About You, they lost their mother too. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
So true. Perspective. So I did a little digging on this book. First of all, I almost had a conniption. I almost had a freaking conniption. So do you know this is based off a book?
that makes sense. I don't know. It's not Nicholas Sparks one though, right?
It's a Nicholas Sparks book. This man has written everything. I want to be married to Nicholas Sparks because he's written every single romance that women die for and men die for decades. It's a Nicholas Sparks book, and it's actually supposed to be set in the 50s, which might be why it's so pure. Because I was thinking about it, and I was like, I think one of the reasons why I also love this film is because, like, you really nailed it on the head for me with, like, the blow on the tattoo. This film is not sexual. This film has sensual, like, it's sensual. There is connection. These two actors have a lot of on-screen chemistry, for sure. That's the only way a movie like this can work, because, like, the friends are irredeemable. They're so different. They need to have that on-screen chemistry for this film to, like, really be sold. But there's no sex whatsoever. Even when they're kissing, like, he says, I'll stop. I'm sorry. I stopped. And, like, at the cemetery, when he brings like a blanket and she's like, are you trying to seduce me? He's like, Are you seducible? And she goes, no. And he's like, good, because I brought a second blanket. Like there's no, and the dad says at the very beginning of the film, like when he first sees Landon, he's like, boys like that have one thing on their mind, and it's for Landon, it was, I'm gonna marry that girl. But this is like definitely the trope of like the star-crossed lovers. So why do you think Jamie is made to be this like deity of a person? Like, why do you think they chose not to incorporate anything past like leukemia as the flaw?
I think because they are trying to make it seem like she is this angel that comes into his life and fixes everything. And I guess that's I love the story and I love the movie, but that's, if I was to, I feel like it works for this topic, but that's a very dangerous message to have, of the idea of this perfect girl who comes into your life, who's naive and chaste and won't ever, soil herself, and you went and had fun with the other girls, and now you'll just take your time, and this is the right one, this is the one you'll marry, and she's perfect, and she's going to change you and fix you, and she never brings you any problems or anything like that. So it's just one of those things where I'm just like, that's why at first I really didn't buy it, like the first 45 minutes, because I was like, she's literally perfect, there's nothing wrong with her, this guy can't make up for the mistake that he made at the beginning, because I feel like that's not the first time that they've done those sorts of things. And I don't see any way in which he is ever going to be good enough for her. There is that whole girls you have fun with and girls you marry kind of complex, which I mean, it exists for guys too, where it's like, guys you fool around with the guys you actually end up with kind of thing. But
in this movie, it's saying that the guy you fool around with can become the guy you want to marry.
Right. But
see, like, so I agree with you 100%. He breaks up with his girlfriend at the beginning really mean, like in a really mean way. And she loves him. Like she really loves him. And so she has flaws. And so what if she's the girl you have fun with? I feel really bad for the ex, to be honest. Especially because she has to watch him bend over fucking backwards for Jamie Sullivan. Who can compare to Jamie Sullivan? And we don't know anything about that girl's background. You know what I mean? So she has to watch the guy that she's in love with fall in love with another girl who's this perfect deity who she can never like compare to, and know that she was the girl he threw away. Would you consider Jamie to be a manic pixie dream girl?
Yeah, I guess so.
I think she is.
I do want to really quickly go back to something you said, because this movie teaches, like, or shows that like the bad boy guy that can just be had fun with can also be the marrying type. Name me a movie where it shows that for a girl. That's where the sexism comes in that I'm talking about. Is that I see it be the reverse less. It's always but the guy can change for the girl, for the right girl, for the beautiful girl, but the girl's always perfect.
You didn't grow up in Catholic school, right? You went to like just like a good school.
Yeah.
I went to Catholic school. And you know what my English teacher said to us in Catholic school? Why buy the milk when you can get the cow for free? It just, oh my God, the whole idea of like this perfect angelic woman coming into your life, or the opposite effect. So in this film, we have the bad boy turn good, and then you have something like Scott Pilgrim, which is a classic case of the manic pixie dream girl, where you have the boring, nerdy guy, and he meets like this very vivacious woman. Like we could do a whole month like spread on the manic pixie dream girl, and that like changes him and makes him awaken and become a whole person. But Jamie Sullivan is a manic pixie dream girl, because these girls are not given any kind of arc. She doesn't really have an arc. She doesn't. Her arc is in, well, this is like a fun little thing I noticed. Her arc is in her makeup and costume. At the beginning of the film, you see her and she's very pale. Her hair is in a low ponytail, and she's got the one sweater and the overalls. They always make a big deal about it. As the film progresses, as she goes into the play, she starts curling her hair. She starts feeling more beautiful, more alive. And it's like almost a little indication. That's why costume and makeup is so important. It's a little indication to the audience that in her last moments of life, Langdon came in and brought her life. Like really, like she looked like she was dying. At the beginning of the film, she looked sick. And then in the middle of the film, like her hair is like around her face, like she's wearing different colors, she's wearing skirts, you know, like she's wearing a little bit more of like blush, she's like wearing makeup. That's her arc. He's the protagonist, she's more of the agent of change. What other things in this would you change? Let's call them out real quick.
Really quick, I will say, if you guys can think of a movie where it's the bad girl that gets changed by like the perfect guy that has no flaws, like the opposite of this, if there is that movie, please comment it, because I would love to see that and what that looks like.
The bad girl that meets the good guy just ends the same way she started. And I would love to see something that changes my mind. What else do you think about this film?
I really like it. The dad makes a lot more sense to me now. I really liked that his dad gets redeemed in that way, that he comes through like that, because I would not have been shocked if he was like, I'm not spending my money to help.
I like the fact that the deadbeat dad is rich. I thought that was interesting. The
Yeah.
fact that they never really discuss what happened. You know that he left Landon and his mom, but the deadbeat dad is a rich cardiologist, like living in this gigantic house with a beautiful family, you know, like
How does that not seem like what Landon is going to do? How is that not different than Landon's story if he had gotten his first girlfriend pregnant, basically?
oh, is that what happened? That makes sense.
Like he didn't, but you know what I mean? But that's almost what it seems like, because it's like, I'm not surprised that the dad has another family that's perfect, but like he got the first one impregnated at the wrong time and wasn't ready, and then went off to med school or whatever and just left her, and now he has a family. So
Yeah. Landon becomes his father, but in like the less shitty way. He
yeah.
becomes the man his father is, but a better man. He becomes a better man than his father. Yeah. I want like a little bit of biz chat. Just the concept of like man, because I love like this movie's so interesting to me, especially the fact that like it was adapted from a book and then made modern.
Mhm.
I don't know if you notice, but Mandy Moore at the beginning of her career, Mandy Moore like came onto the scene as a singer with the song Candy, like come to me, show me who you are, like sexy, sultry, like singer, a little pop star. And then when she started breaking out into movies and acting, if you notice, a lot of her movies all have to do with singing, like they like shoehorn singing in some kind of manner. And for this particular film, the soundtrack of this movie is so iconic because they used a lot of like songs that were already really popular in the 90s. Like New Radicals, There's Something About You was already extremely popular. And like Someday We'll Know was already extremely popular. So they use those songs iconically like throughout the whole film. You see a lot of a montage in this movie, which is like very common in the rom-com, the romantic drama of like the 90s, early 2000s. Like the idea of like little snippets, and that's how you know they're falling in love, you know, like. But in this particular movie, she made a lot of the songs original for this film. So like on the soundtrack is Mandy Moore singing. Like the song that they're listening to in the car is Mandy Moore singing. And so like if you rewatch the movie or listen to the soundtrack, you'll see. And she even did a cover with New Radicals of Someday We'll Know, special for this movie.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and that song had come out years prior. They do the cover and it revamps the song. It becomes super popular. It's all over the radio. So her career prior to A Walk to Remember, she was the bad girl. If you notice, after A Walk to Remember, that was the movie that solidified her as like the like girl next door, sweet, like the Rachel McAdams type of character. And then you see Shane West. Shane West's career did not take off after this. Like, do you see him and stuff? No, he does like minor roles in some movies that don't really do that well and like TV shows. But I feel so bad because when I tell you that little girl me would have taken a bullet. just to be in the same breathing room as Shane West. Oh,
Do we know why?
no, I don't know why.
I'm wondering if it's like how he acts off camera or on camera.
That's so biz politics. What if he's bad to work with? I definitely have to look this up now.
Oh yeah, I'm surprised you didn't. That's why I asked, because you were like, he hasn't been in anything else. I'm like, well, why?
I think it's because I love him too much and I don't want to know. If you could change anything about this movie and make it for 2020, how would you make this movie for 2020?
I would love to see this gender first.
Whoa. I don't know why I'm shocked by that. That's kind of what you were leading to.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I feel like I said it. I want to see the pastor's son be this like perfect boy that comes into her life. I guess maybe Last Song does it a little bit with Miley Cyrus. I feel like that one kind of does it. They exist, they're just not as well known or done in this way, like to this extreme.
I think it's also because we as think about women. Think about women in our generation. Like think about the fact that there are songs that are like, I don't cook, I don't clean. You know what I mean? Like, so imagine if this perfect boy comes in this girl's like life, what are the acts of service that she would do for him? Is it the same exact acts of service that he does? Like she would take him to like the middle of the road, like the tattoo on the shoulder, like let me build you a telescope. Like if it was the same acts of service like that, I would love a gender bend. I
Like
think
I
it's
would want that. Yeah. I don't think it would be like baking a cake for him or something like that. No, I
yeah.
think it would be like those sorts of things where it's like her fulfilling more of like the male role. I would have changed what it was that he did. Cause to me, I'm like, I still think like I like that it's not something mean to her. Like it's not that he's redeeming himself for what he did to her. You know what I mean? Because I think like that's more questionable, but I still don't like what it is that he did do.
I have to skip the opening when I watch it because it's just so like I agree with you. He
Yeah.
almost
Yeah. So I'm just like at that when I saw that I was like that first 10 minutes or whatever 15 minutes, I was like, is this a horror film? Like is this a thriller? What is happening right now?
what I would have done is instead of it happening to another person, I would have had it happen to him.
He's the one that falls and hurts himself. Why?
Because I don't think it's like the whole concept of it, the whole concept of it, it has to be that Landon has no respect for human life. He has no respect for the concept of death. He lives every day like it might be his last, but he doesn't care. Just like what you were saying earlier about like, I don't know why I didn't even mention it prior when you said that when you were like, well, some people like could live their life every day, like it's their last. But by the end of the film, he learns to value human life because he sees it slip away from him, you know? So he has to do something at the beginning of the film for it to be a full like arc of what this is. Something at the beginning of the film has to happen in which he does not value human life, you know? And so I do understand like the gravity of what that situation is because by the end his girlfriend dies and he really like is the total freaking polar opposite of the guy who doesn't visit the guy in the hospital. The reason why that guy is in the film to be at all is because the whole concept of Landon like caring so much about what other people think to the point where it's going to hurt him and it's the wrong people. And then so when he sees that guy in the hospital, the guy says, you know, I can't believe I wanted to be friends with you. Where Landon is very loyal. So I feel like it either had to happen to him or it had to happen to someone closer to him. And it would like maybe they both jump, you know what I mean? Rather than Landon doesn't. Because I feel like if they at least both jump, then it's like this reckless, stupid thing. And then Landon gets off scot free, and the other friend who we care about and have like emotional attachment to gets hurt, you know?
But that's the thing, right? Like that's the point. Is Landon wouldn't jump. That's changing his character at that point if he jumps. And that's why I didn't really like him for the first half of the movies because I'm like, you not only are there to witness this, you literally lead him up there and tell him you're going to jump with him, and at the last minute don't. that to me makes you 10 times worse than anyone else here. The fact that you're then just pulling him out of the water and the last one to leave doesn't redeem you. Like, fuck yeah, you better be doing that, because you're the one that convinced this person at the end of the day, because no one else was like, oh, I've done it before. Oh, I'll jump with you. And there are other ways you can show someone being a terrible person without showing them go that far.
But that's the thing. That's the key, that if we don't have it, then like the opening and the close of the film, like there's always like the thing with screenwriting where it's like the opening and the closing of the film have to be bookends, right? They have to be like perfect cohesion of like the hero's journey. So it's not just showing that he's a bad kid. We know he's a bad kid. We need to show him have total disregard for human life. That's the thing. We can't shy away from that, regardless of how messy it is. So it has to be something like, it doesn't have to be push this stranger off the water tower. He didn't push him. But like, it doesn't have to be like convince this stranger to jump off a water tower, but it does have to be something reckless. It can be drinking and driving. It can be like getting into a fist fight.
I think that's what it would be now. It's like hazing through drinking, actually. It's just making him keep drinking and drinking.
Yeah. The water tower is just so intense of an opening.
It's just one of those things where it's like you just know immediately that the kid is gonna, like, I thought he was gonna die. I didn't even think it was gonna be that he survived. The only reason they make him survive is because how on earth can you have Landon come back from that if he dies?
And the fact that the kid only has like a broken arm.
Yeah, like realistically, in real life, if that situation happened, the kid would have been dead and the story is over.
Think about it. The death at the end has to be the major death.
Right.
You know, like that, like the whole concept of death has to linger in the idea of her, you know? The thing that I would personally change in this movie, the thing that really like was rubbing me, we kept talking about the friends. I want to talk about one specific friend, the best friend, the one that goes to his house, the one that like works in the car with him. He's African American. I like that he's goofy. Was I the only one cringing the whole time in the movie? They like make him like super like stereotypic, like
I know what you mean. Yeah, when I first had him, I was like, is this our like
the token black guy.
yeah, I was like, is this the token black character? And then he had more lines than like normally the typical token black character would and stuff like that. So I was like, okay, so maybe he's not.
I just feel like the character would have been exactly the same. Like I would have made the character exactly the same. Just removed all of the stereotypical, like, oh, he's a black guy type. Like, oh my God, the whole time I was just like he can just be the wacky, goofy guy and just not have all these like little, like, why is this here? Like, you know, and I liked the fact that he was the supporting role. I liked the fact that he was the best friend. And I liked the fact that he does have an arc, you know? But I just was cringing the whole time. I was like, oh, no.
Yeah.
No, sir.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, that definitely would need to change.
Yeah. My modern day eyes were like, that was like number one, I would change that. And then number two, I would like involve the friends more as like more of antagonists, because I think they really only have like the cafeteria scene and then they're like constantly talking about him. And like there's a one beat in the library where the best friend of the ex is like, oh, don't look at him. Oh, I guess he doesn't want to sit with us. And I'm like, why would he want to sit with you? Did you like the movie?
Yeah, I liked it a lot. Did we do the watchability? Is that what we were?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is like a solid like 8 out of 10.
I would say like depending on your sensitivity level, like 7, 8. Like if you want like a good just like if you want to just feel something. Want to feel something. If you don't know the movie and you've never seen the movie before and you have no idea about the plot twist, nothing, I'd give it like a 9. But like it's also dated. It's definitely a dated film. But I do think it's an iconic film in terms of like romance. And I don't think that Landon and Jamie are spoken of enough as like iconic romantic couples.
So tune in next week, guys. Once again, this has been Heartbreaker Films. And yeah, comment below if there's any movies that you want us to check out next.
What would you change about Walk to Remember? How do you feel about Jamie? Do you think she's a manic pixie dream girl? Do you disagree with us? What do you think about Landon? What needs to change? What would you keep? Would you recommend this movie? We want to know. Yeah.
Thank you guys.